Nigeria's diverse mining sector, made up of high-value commodities critical for industrial growth, particularly in the construction, automobiles, electronics and shipbuilding subsectors, is profoundly replete with the absence of an effective regulatory framework to protect and promote the healthcare needs, welfare and benefits of mining workers in the country. The Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, like many other parts of Nigeria, is rich in mineral resources such as cassiterite, clay, dolomite, gold, lead, zinc, marble, and tantalites. Presently, mining activities are taking place in 5 of its 6 area councils, with hundreds of mining employees. Despite its substantial contributions to the economic growth and development of the territory and the nation in general, the hazards of these mining activities to the health and safety of humans are too heavy a price to pay. Indeed, miners in the Federal Capital Territory (FCT), like in other parts of Nigeria, are usually exposed to various levels and forms of health, safety and environmental threats, leaving the poor miners, be they registered or artisanal miners, to be responsible for their own health care. The situation has led to serious concerns about the working conditions and procedures of undertaking mining activities in the FCT and many parts of Nigeria, supposedly covered by government regulations. These concerns are mainly due to issues on hazard incidents during the extraction process, which oftentimes result in significant injuries, loss of lives, destruction of property and equipment, as well as overall reduction in environmental quality. Across the world, there are international and national safety and health laws with preventative strategies to accommodate those standards and laws. Although several African countries have comprehensive mining laws to ensure compliance with health and safety standards and hours of labor, their observance is usually weak and under-resourced in several aspects. For instance, in Nigeria, the only law guiding mining activities in the country is the Nigerian Mining Act 2007. All through the 148 sections of the Act, none had safety and health provisions for miners. This is indeed a red flag because it leaves many wondering how one can be penalized for a crime when it was never legally stipulated as a crime. The only part of the law that partly talks about health and safety are sections 16, 17 and 84 of the Act. However, succor came with the passage of the Nigeria Mining Act 2011. Section 140 to 148 of the Act fully details the health and safety provisions which mining companies must comply with. In spite of the clear legal provisions, a lot of safety issues in various mineral mining sites in the FCT, including loss of lives, property, and environmental degradation, have continued to be reported. Worried by the situation, I decided to see things for myself to assess the level of compliance by mining companies and enforcement by the regulatory authorities. It was a long and dusty ride to a number of mining companies in the FCT. My first visit was rather fruitless as I wasn't granted access to any of the mining sites. I also didn't get to speak with any of the miners. Unperturbed, I went another day, this time to another mining site in the territory. I was greeted with the same hostile attitude. The stiff resistance was the same at 4 different mining companies. But in all these trips, one thing remained constant. I saw workers at the mines without proper protective equipment. A few had face masks, helmets and boots on. As I stepped away to board a vehicle back to town, a worker in one of the mines who served as my guide gave me one of the most shocking revelations when I asked him about their working conditions in the mines.
Based on all my experience with the company, it has been I've been trying in some aspects like that, but not much, you understand, just average, you understand. Still, the union are trying their best to come up with better options that the company will be, you understand, move forward.
But the miners, we have visited and most of them, even barely students, and global, a lot of students and whatever. So they just jump into the hole and do their work, get their code and tell it out all of it. So about safety and whatever, to me, they don't believe in lot of things, not even putting on eyeglass for those kind of things for that safety. So all they just focus is like getting the gold and saving themselves. So most of them do that at the process. Okay, let me just say, there's difference in environment, So some environment, let me say, like the ground, the ground are hard, while some places, the word is supposed to stop. So when the situation that they find themselves in such environment and they start mining, so there are some situations that the ground like do cut and fall on some of them, and it leads to lots of death. I think that's the most challenge that they are facing.
After several efforts to access and interact with miners one-on-one, I stumbled on a page on social media, a community of miners trying to amplify their voices. I immediately sent them a message, and after a while, I got a phone number. After a series of calls, I got to meet the national president of the union, the Nigerian Union of Mines Workers, Hamza Mohammed. He told me the union is struggling to ensure the protection of the rights and welfare of mines workers in the country. Mohammed says mine workers and their welfare have been thrown under the carpet for years and blames their plight on the failure of the federal government to fully recognize mine workers and their enormous contribution to national development. He particularly blamed the exploitation of miners by their employers on the failure of the federal government through the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development to formulate and enforce relevant policies that would protect their welfare and safety.
Actually, the working environment of the Nigerian workers of mining, we have nothing to take on. Because if you look at it, I can say it's not more than 20% that we can say that they are taking care of the health and safety of the workers. So actually, in this regard, I'm using this medium to even draw the attention of the government that these workers, they are citizens of this country, and then this is where they are working and then earning their living. I can understand there is one of the company that he went to one of the Africans country to establish a company. Before even they grant him a license, they said they want to know what is his labor relations. I think he came to Nigeria to even identify with some labor leaders so that he will have a grant and establish his company there. But in Nigeria, why are we not doing so? Government must show concern about the citizen so that the company will work based on the rules of and regulation of the government.
Although the Nigerian Union of Mine Workers say it has been able to get some form of recognition from a few mining companies that are gradually making feeble attempts at catering for the welfare of their workers, more still needs to be done. This revelation left me worried and asking, could the Nigerian government's refusal to fully recognize the Mine Workers Union be a deliberate effort to silence the voices of miners, seeking collective efforts to achieve good conditions of service for themselves and the environmental safety of host communities? Top officials at the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Mines and Steel Development in Abuja, in an interview with Clearview Television, shed some light on mining activities in the FCT and the need for monitoring mechanisms for the health, safety and welfare of mine workers in the country as a whole.
Compliance for some of them is not too easy. What makes it difficult is, I would just say, probably attitude, because we Nigerians, that's the way I'll put it, we Nigerians find it very difficult to comply to certain things. Yes. So some of them will claim that they don't know they're supposed to do ABC. That's why we have officers in the states now. So the officers in the states now go around to make sure that all of them are compliant.
The President, Miners Association of Nigeria, the umbrella body for all mining companies in Nigeria at the 2022 Mining Week in Abuja, corroborated our findings that indeed the Mining Act 2011 lacks enforceable legal provisions and monitoring mechanisms for the health, safety and welfare of mine workers in the country, including sanctions against defaulting mining companies.
The safety and health insurance policy of miners, we are yet to drive it, or we are going to drive it by God's grace. The same thing, the practices, that's taking care of the miners themselves, taking care of the community, taking care of the environment. All these are things we have to undertake, but we have to grow from one step to another. No, they are in existence, but in its premature stage. Yes, because this reclamation process is a long one. We have to establish what we call green revolution.
My investigation further shows that there is no holistic regulatory framework on safety management, compliance and enforcement of approved standards, a lacuna that has created room for flagrant abuse, corruption and ineptitude on the part of mining companies. Indeed, compliance with safety issues are usually at the discretion of mining companies, while implementation of existing cosmetic safety regulations by government officials have become challenging and thus ineffective. Clearview Television's investigation further reveals the failure of the federal government to ensure strict compliance with safety measures and the welfare of miners, a development that has contributed to worsening the plight of poor miners, particularly in the Federal Capital Territory (FCT) and in Nigeria in general.